adopted a rule that indicates clearly that it is set to adopt a resolution containing unrelated conditions that will forestall its approval by this chamber. That is a tragic result that threatens harm and havoc to countless people who depend on government programs and to our economy. It threatens harm to veterans and troops, children who depend on Head Start, seniors who receive meals, and it threatens jobs and economic growth with a ripple effect that will set all of us back in the continuing fragile and all too slow recovery that we've seen from the greatest recession in recent memory. Today's result in the House of Representatives is a tragedy for democracy. Without any overstatement, we have to recognize that this result reflects a dysfunction in democracy. The threatened shutdown in our government is the result of an extreme ideological fringe element in one House and one party that has made the decision that their agenda is a take it or leave it condition. That it's more important than economic growth, more important than our seniors and our children, our veterans and our troops who will be impacted very directly by this impending shutdown. That it's more important not only than the key services, but also to our economic growth and jobs. This morning, I gathered in Glastonbury, Connecticut, with a group of manufacturers, their employees, and economic experts. One economic expert in particular, Stephen Lanza of the University of Connecticut, who told us that a shutdown of 3 to 4 weeks would cost the state of Connecticut alone 2,000 jobs. We know from predictions of expert economists like Mark Zandri of Moody's Analytics that the result for the country as a whole could be percentage points in lost growth. In fact, we can ill afford this self-inflicted, manufactured wound to our nation and to the trust and confidence that people deserve to have in our democracy and our economy. For some businesses, these problems will be more than acute. They will be life-threatening because their existence, not to mention their profits, depends on consumer demand that will be diminished by the ripple effect and the ramifications of the 9,000 federal employees in Connecticut who will be furloughed and the hundreds of others whose jobs will be threatened by a shutdown of just days or a week. The fact of the matter is, we can't know at this point what the full economic ramifications will be. There are more questions, serious questions, than there are answers. I will support an amendment and a measure that will be offered, I think, later this evening or within hours to preserve the benefits and payments that are due to our veterans for their service and sacrifice. That is a provision that we need to make. It's our responsibility to keep faith with those veterans and make sure that we leave no veteran behind and that the processing of claims goes forward and that our veterans receive the benefits that they have earned. At the forum that I had this morning, Brian Montanari, the president of HABCO in Glastonbury, told us he relies on contracts of the federal government for much of his business, and his employees, whose ranks he has been adding, will be impacted by this potential shutdown, if only the uncertainty that it creates. And he is not alone. Businesses all over Connecticut and all over the country will face a tougher economic climate because of this shutdown. The Small Business Administration will stop processing applications for the business loans that it provides for tens of thousands of entrepreneurs, risk takers, and job creators around the country. And perhaps the most galling aspect of this shutdown is the direct economic hardship it will cause to families whose jobs will be threatened, whose livelihoods will be at risk. I'd like to say there's still time, and there is. There are hours to go before the final hour. But the point here is, as the President said so well earlier, keeping the government open is not a bargaining chip, it's our job. As President Obama said, you don't get to extract a ransom for doing your job. Families need to be able to plan for their future, businesses need the certainty to make investments and hire new workers, and the nation needs both parties, not just one, to be fully committed to the democratic process. I hope, in the time remaining, that the House does its job, that these extremist demands are rejected, and certainly by this chamber they will be. My hope is that we can move forward, keep the government open, and providing services that people need, and the support for the economy that is all too necessary at this point in our history. Madam President, I thank you and I yield the floor.